A similar-ish story here on our next match with RDU, a true veteran of Hearthstone right now. But we have xBlyzes as one of our new Grandmasters on the other side. But xBlyzes has maybe a lot less to prove than A-Rock right now. Not only winning a week of Swiss, he came second on another week as well. And he's also had some incredible performances to get to Grandmasters. So xBlyzes still looking fantastic this season, and I imagine continuing to do well. But he's going up against RDU, and honestly, I think we said this maybe the first time we watched these two play against each other, and then maybe the second time as well. But I could watch this matchup probably all season and be very happy.
I mean, it's been great so far. Yeah, I think they've been incredibly entertaining when they have clashed up against each other. RDU seems more than willing and more than adept at playing at xBlyzes' pace, which has, generally increased how exciting these matchups have been to watch. And I think they are both obviously extremely skilled players, and it presents an enormously fun challenge to us as commentators to be able to keep up with the pace of the game and the decisions that they're making and actually break down some of the stuff that's going on. So yeah, I've absolutely loved the series that they've played so far.
It's definitely a lot different, isn't it? Because as Hearthstone casters versus some other games, we have a lot of time to fill. While, sometimes games go a bit slow, sometimes there's not tons to speak about on a turn-by-turn basis. So we've developed a talent for almost talking about rubbish during some games sometimes, and just filling out some time, right? And now it's like the opposite effect, where the trick is to keep up, and it's going to be pretty fun doing that. RDU maybe helping us out a little bit with his first choice being the Highlander Priest as his first deck here, so excited to see what this can happen, as RDU actually does play Priest in a way I appreciate, as he really does and has taken the tempo approach pretty aggressively in the previous weeks.
Yeah, RDU is a stone-cold killer when it comes to Priest Mirrors. He has been the only person so far, I believe, who has consistently managed to end Priest Mirrors through lethal damage in his favor. Other people have done it, but not in every occasion as RDU has been doing it so far. But it's not going to be that matchup. It's going to be the signature deck, I would say, for xBlyzes, although he has finally made room for those brooms in his deck this time around, but he is still running that Kael'thas, which is starting to become slightly less common. It was ever present to begin with, and then when the nerf hit, there was kind of a 50-50 divide, I would say, on whether people thought it was appropriate or not. We never really got to know xBlyzes' actual opinion, because after the nerf happened, he just confessed that he submitted the wrong Druid list, and it was the week-old one. So now, having seen this Druid list all together with the full information, he's got the brooms in there, but he has also kept hold of that Kael'thas. And that doesn't surprise me, because from my limited impressions of xBlyzes so far, obviously I don't know him that well. My impressions of him come through a camera lens. Kael'thas just seems like a xBlyzes card, right? You jam it on the board, and then you start playing like 9, 10, 12 cards in a single turn. Like, that seems to be right up his street.
And I think that's interesting there as well, not only as xBlyzes as a player, but also just Kael'thas in general. Is I think everyone's still pretty undecided, because I feel like a lot of players have taken a backseat away from Druid as well, just in general, as it feels figured out, so to speak. But Kael'thas, I think most times I've seen it, maybe because it has been from xBlyzes, it's looked pretty solid for me. And the big question is, if you can fit that in and animated broomsticks, which, as you mentioned, xBlyzes has done this week, then are the cuts just correct? And does this just fill out the deck that little bit more and allow that extra little bit of win rate? Because of KT, xBlyzes is also running 2 Survival of the Fittest as well in this list, and none of the Mount Seller stuff. So it is just interesting to see if just this reliance on pure, heavier combo play and double Survival of the Fittest will continue to be successful for him.
Yeah, it's sometimes problematic against Priest, because you don't just have those extra waves of threats that you get from having Mount Seller in your deck. You don't have as many ways to just build boards from scratch. You're quite limited in the total amount of minion presence that you have in your deck. It's basically your beasts, your guardian animals, your Kael'thas itself, and the Ysera, and that's about it. It's about all the ways that you have to make minions, unless you pick up something extraordinary from nature studies. So it does make things a little bit more limited overall, but it does add potential to just end games on the spot in the way that only Kael'thas can do.
Well, already, not all the ramp xBlyzes will be looking for in his opening hand. Whereas RDU at least has this the studies along with this Sethic Veilweaver as well, so it does have some options, but both players not really having the either having any explosive starts, honestly.
Yeah, and Blyze just holding on to the Guardian Animals there, it looked like.
And what do you like here? Is the Hothead just tempting because it'll be so cheap?
I was kind of tempted by the Hotheads, admittedly. But I think Big Ol' Whelp was my second choice. I think, making sure there are some very key answers that you want to have in this matchup. And also just having enough resources to keep pressuring, right, is also very powerful in a lot of positions. So I think Big Ol' Whelp, just to keep economy high, is pretty reasonable as well.
And with Blyze's build, running these Bog Beams still in his list, along with the Crystal Power, of course, I do not blame RDU at all for not just dropping a tempo Sethic, as especially without a Raised Dead. It's not something he'll be really looking to potentially sacrifice to Blyze's turn 3.
5-5 in play for Blyze. No messing around. Blyze taking us back in time. Trip through the old meta. RDU has a very clean answer to it. Shame that his only dragon had to be committed to board and now leaves it vulnerable to a Bog Beam from Blyze if he wants to go for it. Interesting opportunities to just Vate first here and actually drop Ghidra Bog Beam.
Yeah, I was going to say, there are a few options, really, weren't there? Because there was even just going into a Guardian Animals, you mentioned. So yeah, he's just going to go for the Bog Beam and just get the Ghidra down. And very convenient 4-7 with Wind Fury. Looks pretty good to me.
Yo. Zeus scheme all the way down to 0. Which means he can now end this turn with Forbidden Words, and he knots the perfect Apotheosis to use up the 3 mana? Hello? Okay.
And just gets another one.
Insane. Yeah, load it up. Nice.
I wonder, is this just Wave of Apathy to reduce the chance of the trades? Yeah, I like this. Going into turn 7 as well. The Guardian Animals like backup. I think I like this a lot, actually.
Rips the Animals. He was guaranteed a Thresher there. It was either double Thresher or this outcome, having drawn the runners.
Look how strong this Sethic is. It just solos the Guardian Animals and the Twilight Runner. Oh.
Blyze says, no it doesn't. I'm not making those attacks. You cannot make me.
Well, I think the KT had a lot to say about that one, honestly, because now next turn he can go with the Survival of the Fittest, and guess what? Having minions on board with Survival is a lot better than not having minions on board.
Agreed. You can even take it further than that, because Blyze had the opportunity to just straight up innovate the Survival of the Fittest into this situation a turn earlier, and he held on to the innovate and then just played Guardian Animals. Sorry, Guardian Animals is what I meant. Played Guardian Animals on curve instead, holding on to the innovate for 1 turn before he even had the Kael'thas in his hand. Like, he understands that is kind of the win condition of his deck. He does need to play to it to a degree.
Yeah, and that's where you see this this Kael'thas for Blyze isn't just, just chuck it in, it's good sometimes. This is the strategy, right? Like, this is the core part of the deck, which is why so much of this setup was done for it. If this was just, I'm just going to play Druid and just put KT in, you'd probably play a little bit more just, well, yeah, of course you innovate Guardian Animals out on turn 6. That seems great. But no, Blyze did hold for this, and the reward is there.
It's a pretty sick Master Spell, honestly. It's one of the biggest issues if Kael'thas ever sticks to the board. That's when you can actually start getting into Nightmare Land playing against this build of Druid.
Doesn't sound like a fun place to visit.
You know, I have like a mental bug right now that I have to fight off in current Hearthstone, where whenever something's got the reborn animation on it like that, I think it's a freaking Jandis illusion. My brain's just like, oh, Jandis illusion! Oh, just ping it, it's dead. No, it's the opposite of how that
Why
works.
isn't he hero powered?
Yeah.
This double plague in RDU's hand, though, is going to be a tough one to deal with for Blyze.
It is indeed.
Jeez.
Well, not the middle one. Let's rule that one out.
RDU not playing a Broom in his list, so he does not have access to like Thresher, Bloom,
Right.
Thresher, Broom. So yeah, that combo not quite available to him. Otherwise, that would be a very serious look.
It's got to be runner in that case then, right?
I think so.
And I guess there's an argument for just the cleaver that turn and just drop it that turn. But I think knowing that you're stealing from your opponent's hand, right? This is the thing that you're scared of, potentially?
Exactly.
Because you've seen 50% of this combo already. They only need to have the other bit.
And Blyze has 5 cards left in his deck, so
Yeah,
it's not like a long shot, is it, as to whether
And
he's
he
got it or
plays
not.
2 brooms.
Yeah. Very interested now to see if RDU just goes for a plague this turn or wants to try and get more value out of it and do something a little bit different.
Thy blood be born again.
Because there's always the worry that although this play looks absolutely fine, do not get me wrong, the more you try and get value out of a card like Plague, suddenly the more damage you take in. And then you just start to sit back and think, well, wait, what if I just Plagued and just not took any of that damage, right? And then sometimes it can add up in a weird way. But don't get me wrong, that turn from RDU did look good enough to me to not go for Plague. But it is something you have to bear in mind, not to be too greedy, especially when he's running 2. Or he's got 2, should I say, not running 2.
That's fair. I was also curious about Rush Wind Fury from RDU side, just to be able to kill 2 minions there instead of 1, because there is still the threat of the second survival of the fittest coming back through the other way. I think more and more as time goes on and like Searmat becomes an older and older card in the meta, we're seeing a little bit less Rush Divine Shield and a little bit more Rush Wind Fury overall. Would you agree with that assessment? It seems to be that way to me.
I think so, but I think it's also people, or the players might just be reacting to the meta as well. Because a lot of the time, I feel like there's so many answers that trying to just go for the lower immediate value play of trying to just set it up to live as a 6/6 just doesn't work as often at the moment. I don't know what. Maybe that's just me, just a feeling I have. But whereas getting the immediate, trade, go, it just feels like it pays off way more consistently. Rather large soul mirror though. Already.
Yeah.
Still can't.
Does look
make
like
the
he's
difference though.
Primarily interested in just preserving minions himself. He's not really using this as a clearing tool. He's just like, okay, now I have some giant things as well. Sick. Sign me up.
But do you have bigger giants? Because now Blyze could play Survival of the Fittest.
That's fine, right? Like I think the second Survival of the Fittest is RDU's trigger to rip the first of these Plague of Deaths, right? That's just kind of what he's waiting for. He's just trying to stall until that point.
Especially with 3 dragons pulled that turn. That is a significant number of portals used up into a Plague.
Yeah.
I think Blyze is just holding the survival just for lethal, like a Savage Roar.
Very possibly, yeah. But obviously, like, Blyze isn't playing around double Plague of Death right now, but RDU with double Plague of Death is playing around Blyze's deck because his information is a lot more transparent. So I think right now RDU wants 1 Plague of Death for a lot of Dragon Portals and 1 Plague of Death for the second Survival of the Fittest. And so either way, it seemed like this was going to be the turn for one of the potential Plague of Deaths.
And Blyze knows RDU plays 1 natural Plague, right? So it's not like 1 is a surprise like we've seen in other matchups. But yeah, he knows that there is 1 available to RDU at some point in the day. The Broom just, it's such a good card, isn't it? It just changes the scope of the turn so dramatically.
Yeah. Board control achieved yet again for Blyze. 2 extra dragons, 3 extra dragons generated into the hand for survival value. huge deal?
Yeah, a really big deal, because we are getting to the point for xBlyzes here where this plague is a problem because he's used so many portals and he will just run out of threats. But now he's just gained effectively like 3 additional threats I'm going to say shouldn't be allowed, but you know what I mean, right? Doesn't naturally have access to.
Yeah. Run a Herald. Yep. Or Dragon, I guess. The Herald's the base thing, right? Is that Bronze Herald, the Death Rattle thing that gives them to you in the first place? Got it.
Now, this is where Plague becomes a bit of a problem, because it generally is your whole turn, and we can see, and RDU will now know, that there's at least another 4/4 in the hand, at minimum, plus a dragon, and that is enough as a setup to then again create a potential lethal opportunity for xBlyzes.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? Because that Twilight Runner was very close to just not actually being able to attack for xBlyzes, because he's so close to just dying to fatigue. But that was about the last turn it was likely to have an impact in terms of threatening lethal. But yet again, RDU is being threatened with lethal this turn, just with 1 dragon. xBlyzes coming down on its own.
And I wonder, with the brooms gone, is this ever a Krunks into an 8/8, and then maybe does switching the hands do anything?
It just keeps xBlyzes alive longer, I would imagine, because he starts to get some draws from your deck instead of the fatigue draws. Yeah. Okay. It's dead.
Yep, as long as he could kill it off there, that was all that mattered. And like we said, like, xBlyzes got close to setting that up, but the second plague, imagine if it wasn't generated, or imagine if RD was a little bit more liberal with the plagues earlier, then there would have potentially been a bit of a problem there. But still, a very, very close game there, as we expect when these two play, honestly. Like we said at the start, I just enjoy, I think these two just have good games of Hearthstone. But a very, very close one for xBlyzes.
Yeah, and I love the plan overall. Like, he fought with minions so hard to preserve those Plague of Deaths for as long as he possibly could. Like, he master spelled the initial huge board as opposed to just, using Shadow of Deaths and Plague of Deaths. He just left it there as small minions. Then he used Soul Mirror to just make his own big minions and force more stuff out. And he was greeding it and greeding it and greeding it. I think he was lined up. It's like, okay, 1 to clear some dragons, 1 to deal with the second survival. He never ended up having to deal with the second survival, but I think the reason you can see that was a good plan is xBlyzes actually generated more value than you could really account for. He got the extra 4/4s and an extra xBlyzes from the Taunt Dragon that gave him more stuff in hand, and RDU was still able to have all of that covered with the way that he was rationing out his removal. So if you need any real indicator of how much of a good plan RDU had to break apart that matchup, that should make it pretty clear.
Yep, really cool game number 1, but we've got plenty more where that came from with RDU versus xBlyzes. We are going to go to a quick break while we set up the next game, so don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back with some more Hearthstone Grandmasters.
Playing around the myriad secrets that Shadow Jeweler Hanar creates is a daunting task indeed, but Glory rose to the challenge admirably. When he realizes the threat of Chonsu's potential freezing trap, Glory holds back on attacking with his Twilight Runner for 2 turns. This beautifully shows both the flexibility of Malygos Druid and Glory's approach to the matchup, resulting in a well-calculated lethal.
Yup,
Okay, no
that
taunt.
is just game.
That's not a taunt. You activate the freezing trap. Yeah.
Nice and clean.
That was sick. That was awesome.
It really was. And it's all off the back of Glory choosing to keep this minion stealth many, many turns ago when he played the Guardian Animals.
Very, very nicely done from Glory. I think it was a really good demonstration of how you can play the deck very flexibly. It's called Malygos Druid, but a lot of the time it functions as regular Druid with the Ramp and Guardian Animals package. Knowing how to make powerful plays is important in Hearthstone, but knowing when to not make powerful plays is what sets Viper apart from the rest. By holding back on his pair of 0-mana Flesh Giants, he is able to set up lethal and beautifully play around the Soul Mirror he suspects to be in Psycho's hand.
He's not playing both. I can tell you that much. He is not playing both.
He's not playing any?
He's playing neither. The God Reads coming through from Viper right now.
That's funny. I guess this... Is this just genius? You've seen
might be.
Zephyrus? You've
Yeah.
seen Zephyrus? What's
Yeah.
the biggest problem? Soul Mirror, that's the best AoE. Just don't let it work.
Just threaten lethal without it. Yeah.
Yeah, just don't
This
let
is-
it work.
This is inspired. This is actually inspired.
Oh,
I'm so-
Penflinger! Penflinger! Oh, the Penflinger, Raven! The Penflinger!
Wow. Insane. Viper's a god. That game was amazing. And Penflinger takes the victory for Viper there. What a game. And honestly, Sol, although it might look simple to just play around Soul Mirror, not play any big giants, I definitely wouldn't have done it. I'm very impressed with that game from Viper.
Despite playing through a grueling series that lasted almost 2 hours, Alan was still able to pull out one of the coolest Hearthstone turns that I have ever seen. By combining the newly released Cabal Acolyte with Wretched Reclaimer, he is able to repeatedly steal minions from Bank Yugi's board. And if that wasn't enough, he ends with an ingenious use of Conjurer's Calling. What a display from our newcomer to Grandmasters.
So he could go Wave of Apathy, resurrect his guy with Wretched Reclaimer, and then play another spell to steal 2 of these minions? Is
That sounds
probably
good.
what he's looking at.
But that was the worst one to
Yeah,
steal.
that was pretty
To
bad.
deny death rattles.
And then if he gets a 1-mana spell, he can go again with Wretched Reclaimer,
Uh-huh.
but he doesn't get it. Oh, but he gets
Okay.
2 10-drops! Oh!
Wait. He gets... That's insane. Okay, that line was not straightforward whatsoever. Alan spotted it immediately, got one bad outcome and one amazing outcome. That's a Frost Nova lost for Bank Yugi too. It's at prime time.
That was god tier from Alan. That was
It
so sick.
Turtle Mage is one of the most unique decks to come out of Scholarmance Academy. It utilizes Tortollan Pilgrim to repeatedly cast Potion of Illusion from your deck for some pretty absurd combos, but when you draw both potions from your deck, everything starts to fall apart. But not for Eddie. With an incredible performance on the Turtle Mage, he tempos out for the win to be crowned the back-to-back America's champion.
Yeah, I was so tunneled in on Killen's hand that we didn't actually pay attention to Eddie's hand. Look!
Oh, double potion! He drew double potion!
I mean, we haven't really seen the deck have that failure rate yet, and
It's been
now
so long.
Eddie has to improvise a win condition here. Right. And Solarian Prime does have the ability to still be good on the following turn.
Yeah, you can see Killen sits up.
No matter how he slices it, there's 2 chances.
2 chances. He needs Doomsayer exactly.
Nope. That's not it.
That's it.
Killen concedes. Eddie wins 2-1. Back-to-back week victories in the Swiss tournaments. One of the most dominant performances that you'll ever see in Grandmasters, winning 2 out of 3 weeks, ending #1 in points. Never missing a single top 8 in any Swiss tournaments this year. Eddie has to be the player to watch.
Another week, another Mindrender Elucia clip. This time coming from No Hands Gamer, who spots a truly staggering lethal opportunity here by using Eddie's own Turtle Mage combo against him. And while it ends in devastating fashion for No Hands Gamer, it doesn't detract from the genius line he took to almost steal the win.
Very likely, it's unlikely he draws the Potion of Illusion, #2. And he should have a kill lined up relatively soon. No Hands Gamer immediately playing the Mindrender Elucia.
Yep. So he wants to dump Sunreaver here and both Tortollans.
Right.
And play freeze.
Wait, but then he still he can dump both, but then there's Potion of Illusion in the hand.
He can kill both the Tortollans on the other side. Wait.
Oh, wait, what is happening?
Can he kill him?
Kronks?
Nah, I can't kill him. He doesn't have the mana to kill him.
Wait, are you sure?
He needs
Oh, wait, no,
3
the
more. He doesn't
copy
have board
order.
space.
Yeah. Or hand space, right? Wait, he keeps copying Kronks and Mindrender. Oh, he doesn't have the hand space like you said.
He also doesn't have board space.
Unless he
I feel like that should have happened first.
Oh, hey,
also.
the Flame Ward!
DJ! Oh, the Flame Ward!
The Flame Ward!
No, he's still. Oh, now he gets 2. Yeah, it's order play. He does
Wait,
have the
does he have
space.
time? Does he have time? Oh my gosh!
He doesn't have time.
No
the Flame
time,
Ward.
gamer!
No! Oh, he had the lethal. No! Oh my God, that was sick. So he needed it to be exactly Flame Ward, right?
Yeah, and it was. Oh,
Yeah, I forgot about
geez,
the
you
Flame Ward. Oh my gosh, that was so close. And now he's just gonna die. Oh, that was so close.
Welcome back, everyone. We are ready to get into our next game between RDU and Blyze. RDU taking a win with that priest means he's just got his rogue and his mage left over to take down Blyze's lineup. But honestly, Saul, sorry, as I'm swallowing, just grabbed some food in the break. Apologies. The list from RDU, his rogue list, looks much more powerful than some of the other rogue lists we've been seeing today. I really do like this stealth sort of a little bit more aggressive package. There is still some sort of sustainability there, but for me, the deck just looks a lot better than the other rogues.
Yeah, it's a similar thing. We've seen Bloodyface, I think, running something quite similar, and RDU has generally been on this build for quite some time himself as well. Where it's not the secret package for extra value, it's just more aggression with the stealth minions as well. Infiltrator, Lillian, Ash Tongue Slayer, just to be a little more consistently aggressive with the rogue. But we'll get to that a little bit later on, because it's going to be the mage coming out here from RDU, which is pretty standard stuff. It's not the full orange build that we've been seeing from some other players. He is playing double Arcane Intellect, which seems very uncommon these days, alongside one natural Conjurer's Calling in the deck as well. And a very eclectic collection of one-mana spells, as he has 1 Mirror Image, 1 Brain Freeze, and 1 Devolving Missiles, looking for maximum Swiss Army knife effect, but minimum consistency in terms of his one-cost spells.
Yeah, we see the same come from Tice as well. I think they are running the same mage list, where we saw a Mirror Image be pretty clutch earlier on in the day, but for now, in this game, I do like this list overall. I have been turned over to the one maker variant of thinking here, where I think the card is very good. But as we talked about, right, it's super hard to work out what the cuts actually are in this list and what are the keeps. So again, I'm just waiting to see which one reigns supreme, and then I'll pretend I was the fan of that list all along.
Easy. Classic caster option select coming out from Raven there. Yeah.
Ooh. These are 3 pretty interesting choices here from RDU. There's the Mirror Entity, which is probably the lesser of the 3. But the option for pretty large amount of burn damage or just value with that Power of Creation is interesting, because there is a fairly aggressive set of cards in RDU's hand right now with the Frostbolt and the Raz. I wonder if it's Fireball and RDU's going to go, I'll say all in, but not quite all in, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, a lot of interesting things going on this turn. So I was going to bring this up, okay? So, first off, he tempoed his Sorcerer's Apprentice this turn, which we have to acknowledge. He did just see a Bog Beam from the opponent, and this is also your opponent's Coin Overgrowth turn. So it's kind of a dual-pronged attack. We're like, okay, they just used 1 removal spell. They're kind of unlikely to have a second removal spell, and I could potentially disrupt their Overgrowth turn. Now, you said Mirror Entity probably the least valuable. I kind of disagree with that, because just the merit of it being a secret has value against Druid, particularly on the turn that it's been played right now, right? Because AC, Coin from Blyze, he has to test Counterspell. Against this specific hand, it's all nonsense, because he just gets to coin bait Guardian Animals anyway. But against certain hands, with Overgrowth and whatever else, that secret could actually represent a lot of disruption in and of itself, just being a secret.
Yeah, it was definitely a really interesting discover, wasn't it? Because there was definitely no bad choice, which makes the choices actually harder. Frostbolt. We used to clean up this Twilight Runner. Thresher's going to get devolved as well. But RDU right now has got to hope that this evocation can get some work done in the very near future.
Yeah. xBlyzes still does not have particularly good information on what this spell is. I believe he only tested Counterspell and Netherwind Portal on the previous turn. Now he is down to Mirror Entity and Spellbender. And I think you're pretty confident your opponent would not pick Spellbender against you. But even if he did, he still tests it first with the Mirror Entity. If Mirror Entity hadn't have gone off there, obviously we would not have seen the Iron Bark come down on that turn. But he was free to do so, having activated the Mirror Entity with the most innocent minion in his entire deck.
Yeah, and he's about to go off with the most ruthless minion in his deck as well, because next turn, having Innovate into KT and then Overflow is huge and might be strong enough. RDU's just not going to be able to come back from. Even if this Evocation, if that's going to be RDU's play as a response to this, even if it's good, xBlyzes will just have a handful of cards still to be able to keep playing. That's the biggest deal here.
xBlyzes is feeling it. He's in his zone. KT in play. This is how he likes to play games of Hearthstone. Potential next turn, but no current reward. No big payoff spell as it stands. First things first, see if the KT is going to stick. Flame Strike's uncastable. Arcane Missile's Combustion can do some work. There's an AI as well. Yeah, I think he's got to start with the missiles and see if he can get some help.
His second missiles and still Combustion too, and the damage from Raz, obviously.
Yeah, this is
have to be very specific.
Okay. So he could have just guaranteed that just with Combustion and Ping. There was a disaster outcome there where none of the missiles from the second cast actually landed on the Kalthas, and then he was in trouble.
This is the issue, right? Because the card, because the big spell wasn't, say, for example, Survival of the Fittest, although you could argue that would have allowed KT to live anyway. But because it was Overflow with all this card draw, okay, RDU's just used Evocation and pretty much everything he's got to defend that one turn. xBlyzes has all the cards in the world, so he can just do another good turn. And then the next question is, can RDU defend again? And honestly, I feel at least... Well, okay. Yes is the answer to my question, I suppose, but I do feel it is a weakness of Mage that they can't keep doing turns like this, generally.
One Thief? Evocation? None of these are Evocation? Tome of Intellect is a little bit Evocation? It's more Evocation than the other cards.
Right. I guess that's probably is his best chance, because suddenly the burn plan isn't really working, though, is it?
I'm serious. He drew second Sork. He has no cards in hand. He needs enormous value, and none of those cards were enormous value.
No. But Ysera is, as it's a good follow-up for Blyzes. Just keep it on the pressure. Although he has been slowed down over the last couple of turns, he still has plenty more where that came from. And one thing I will say is there's some pretty impressive turns we've seen from RDU so far. But can he fend off waves of dragons? I'm going to say I doubt it.
Yeah. Yeah, he was likely going to need some kind of insane apprentice turn this turn that ideally ended in Mana Giants and Conjurer's Calling, so he could actually just be threatening and not just be on the reactive back foot the whole time. Just get ahead of the dragons before they come out of the deck. Try and threaten some kind of counter-lethal push, but this probably just is not good enough now at this point. He's likely to be a turn too slow even if he goes off next turn.
Yeah, the second Overflow as well, right? Not that he's necessarily going to be castable this turn if he does run into a counter spell. I think Blyzes might just take the turn to test it with an Overgrowth, but really just having, or he could just naturally draw Dragon Balls anyway. Yeah, who cares? Never mind. Why does he need to draw cards? Insane. Probably wants to play Nature Studies first, right? Yeah, okay. This makes sense.
It does. Now he just doesn't have a Gidra turn at all, because obviously he gets counterspelled, so he doesn't get the discount on his Overgrowth. And also, if it's not counterspell and it goes off, that's a bit weird, because you've just made your Gidra smaller by discounting the spell that you end up casting. But yeah, on balance, just don't get counterspelled there. It seems fine.
Yeah, really rough turn for Blyzes there, not getting the Gidra down. It's Definitely a tough one.
I mean, he literally did nothing. His turn was actually pretty bad. If you
His
break
turn
down
was
what...
summon 3
I know.
dragons.
No. If you break down the actions he took that turn, he actually did nothing.
Yeah, he drew 3 dragons. That's an action.
Yeah, okay.
Good freeze there on the Deathwing though from RDU. It's going to again buy him time, but my question is buy him time for what? Because as you point out, obviously, that even going for Conjurers, what would they even have to be at this point?
Yeah.
And also, he doesn't have the price, unless I've blinked and missed it. He's not shuffled Solarid into the deck, right?
He has.
Oh, has he? I did blink and miss it. Okay.
You did blink and miss it, indeed.
The early turns were pretty rapid.
I don't think it was a natural. I think he generated one and then it's in there, but it's in there.
Well, looks like you've only got 1 freeze and more than 1 minion you need to freeze RDU, so this might just be a little bit too much. And we see the concede come out, and it was just a little bit too much too quickly there from Blyze. But again, you have to say, I mean, he played towards it as well, of course, but the Kael Thas just destroyed that game for Blyze. Like, he won because of the KT. So once more, I'm getting more and more convinced that this build, it might just be the best build. Never mind Mount Seller if you can just play KT every game.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly looks powerful in Bly's hands, right? He did fall at the first hurdle with the Priest, but he was able to quite handily run past that mage. I think, we can trace all that back. RDU's decision to go really hard all in. I think, Blythe's draw was of sufficient quality that he probably would have beaten RDU's hand regardless of what happened. But
right.
I kind of respect the opportunity to go in very early with the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Like I said at the time, you saw the Bog Beam come down, so there's limited answers to your Sorcerer's Apprentice. But it was that turn and the decision to go for the secret over the burn damage. Or the value option with the Power of Creation. I think those two turns really spelled the options out for RDU as to how he's going to approach the matchup. But yeah, I think the quality of the draw overall for Blyze probably would have won the game, regardless of choices from RDU then.
Yep, and we are going straight into our next game. These players, as is usual, not messing around. And Bly's going to be on this Demon Hunter, and it is built in a little bit of a different fashion. Double One Maker in there, as well as double Vulpera and double I-Beam. So there's a lot of flexible tools and card generation in this list. And honestly, the more I've looked at this list and thought about it, the more I do like it, because it just gives you more options while still being quite aggressive.
I wonder.
And
yeah,
again,
I can see that. I think Vulpera Scoundrel in particular is a card that in this list does make some sense to me. It's not really a card that I've been a huge fan of in most decks that people have flirted with the idea of playing it in. But certainly in this one, we've seen scenarios, right, where just loosely any AoE would be game winning in a lot of positions, but you've used up your Blade Dances or whatever else, and then if you play a Vulpera Scoundrel, it can offer you Immolation Aura, it could offer you Chaos Nova, it could offer you all manner of things. Like Command the Illidari even might be good enough on some board states to do what you need it to do. So
there's also the new 7-mana AoE, which now I can't actually remember the name of, but the clear all and make the 3/3s is really powerful too. Well, here as well, I was speaking about liking RDU's rogue list a lot more than some of the other rogues we've cast today, but I still think this is a rough matchup for rogue. I think Demon Hunter kind of laughs at this kind of matchup because these stealth minions don't normally achieve too much when they're so easily dealt with the turn they attack afterwards, and then there is the heal recovery options for Blyze in this Demon Hunter, so I think this is a pretty tough one for RDU to get a win with here.
Yeah. The healing is very dependent on, two copies of one card in particular, though, with the Eldraki Warblades. They don't always get to it, and I think, if anything, the extra aggression that RDU has in his deck might stand him in slightly better stead than some of the other builds of this deck in this particular matchup. I do like his turn here, though. He absolutely needed a turn here, so just digging for the secret passage seems absolutely correct, and he is immediately rewarded with the big old Cleaver coming down.
There is a potential 2-turn setup here from Blyze, and he is just going for it. That's what, 16, 17, 18 damage with Dagger. With an Abyss, that adds up to lethal as far as I'm concerned, Sol.
Yeah. I absolutely adore how quickly xBlyzes made that decision. Like, how do you process the idea that you're happy taking 18 damage that quickly? It's like,
On
yeah, it's fine,
22
whatever.
health.
Yeah. Like, he's probably right. I don't think he has any other way to win the game. I actually, don't think it's that hard of a decision. But he's just like, yeah, whatever, 18, fine. Play my 12-12. I have full mana this turn. Biggest minion. Wait, what? It has stealth? It has dormant? What's going on? I thought it was just a 12-12.
How do you doing the genius play as well and using the spell damage minion he got as the activator for the Eviscerate for exact lethal as opposed to just going Abyss.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing the mind games there. It does take a win there, and as I was saying, or as I was trying to say before that game just ended, was that I felt like xBlyzes had a really good matchup, and Demon Hunter generally does. But if you are going to stick a Van Cleef for a 10-10 with other minions on board, and the response to the Demon Hunter is effectively pass, if you know what I mean, for that one turn, then yeah, you lose those games of Hearthstone. So rough one there, and a good win for RDU, taking what I think at least is an unfavored matchup and leaving him now just on Mage to get a win with.
Yeah, it was worse than pass in response, right? It was
true.
Pass plus deal 3 damage to yourself, essentially, was the play from xBlyzes. But yeah, he's going to find himself now back on that Demon Hunter RDU, back to the well with the Mage one more time. And this is a matchup that we've had some disagreement on, even internally, like between casters, production crew members. Like Abar was saying, he felt like this was a good matchup from the Mage side, whereas I think most of us felt like it was pretty strong from the Demon Hunter side overall.
Yeah.
And just the ability to race was just overall too powerful. But the stats in GM, as of last week at least, were favoring the Mage side as well. So definitely some work that needs to be done in really solving the lines in this one.
Yeah, and once more, I do think some of the additional tools in this build of xBlyzes does make a matchup like this that little bit better. He has much more consistent early minions with these one makers. Because if you remember, if we're going back from the beginning of GM this season, players were bringing a Soul Demon Hunter list that like barely played anything in the early game, right? It was Aldraki Warblade was your early game play, and that's it.
Yeah.
In minion-wise, whereas now we're seeing a little bit more of an inclusion of either extra 1-drops or 2-drops in the list, which does help in this matchup.
Is it cold?
Also, some element of contention over how the matchup should be played as well, because the Apex casters, Derek and Gia, had kind of a bone to pick with Alan, who threw away Sorcerer's Apprentice stuff in the early game, and then sort of, said to him, like, hey, please let us know, like, why you did that. So he actually made a tweet saying that he feels like spell damage card draw opening hand, like, just nutty stuff into cram session and to draw a bunch of cards is the way that you win. And Sorcerer's Apprentice really isn't good enough in the matchup, to which Orange then immediately disagreed and said, no, the way you win is like Sorcerer's Apprentice, get a super cheap Mana Giant, that's the way that you win the matchup, and get an early Mana Giant. So, yeah, players seem to be very much disagreeing in the way this matchup should go.
Yeah, I didn't see the Alan tweet, but I think I would have agreed with Alan overall, because I think Sorcerer's Apprentice, early at least, like as in, on curve or turn 3 or whatever, just like, gets dealt with almost every single time, like so quickly that does that turn is impactful enough. And if you tell me they're going to pop off with a huge evocation and get loads of value, then sure, it's a good keep. But outside of that, I'm kind of on Alan's side here.
I think that was specifically the mole, by the way. I think he threw away Apprentice Evocation, if my understanding of the scenario is correct. He threw away those two cards together in the matchup.
I'd be surprised if Derek even cast him next week.
Yeah, I know. He
just refused his.
Actually boycotts Alan. Yeah. It's fine. Alan, you can come over to Europe. We'll have you, buddy.
Yeah.
You'll fit right in.
No worries. We'll make space. Here, though, this is a good turn from RDU. This mirror image is going to be useful in this matchup as well. But xBlyzes has done a ton of damage to RDU so far, bringing them all the way down to 11.
Oh, he got the lab partner! The lab partner was so clutch! The one extra generated card for 0 that enabled the Giant to come down this turn. Orange right now sending the smuggest screenshot tweet you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, and then xBlyzes at least wanted to clear this board anyway.
Yeah.
That is going to be a little bit of a problem. You can't... Oh, no, sorry, you can't do it now. Yeah, the mana was too much. Does end up leaving up a giant, but the board clear was there without the help of that spellbender. Obviously, it could have been a counter spell as well, but still.
Someday I'll be just like you.
Boom. Taunts. Life steals. Groms. It's got to trade, right? Has to trade.
Oh, yeah. The Demon Hunter has cards. If you don't trade, you're even more dead. I guess this was the choice, right? How small do you make it?
Fair.
Was there like a fear that you could have maybe turned it into a stealth minion?
A dormant minion, you mean? Or...
It went down to a 1-drop, right?
No, it goes to 0. It's a 3-drop.
Oh, sorry, it's
it goes
3.
to 0.
Yep, you're right. I'm being stupid, yeah. I was just for a second then was like, what if it's stealth? And then, yeah, it goes down to 0. I'm an idiot. So 4 Blade Dance doesn't quite cut it. Oh! Insane.
And so, yeah, this is how you win the matchup. Conclusively proven. Sorcerer's Apprentice to Evocation.
Right, but I'll raise you something here, Subtle. Orange and Nakru said it was mage favored or whatever, or however you do it. Doesn't play Conjurers in his list. So,
yeah,
what does he know?
Fair point. Fair point. It's actually not quite over just yet. The I-Beam does pull exactly 1 damage out of range.
But either you can make that back with a Raz.
Yep.
Which means that's going to be game, that's going to be the series, and that was frankly unexpected, at least from me, Sal. I thought Demon Hunter was guaranteed a win in this series, but RDU pulled it out of the bag twice and looked pretty impressive. So he is going to take that win over Blyze 3-1.
It was actually just the greatest lab partner you've ever seen in your life. The Primordial Studies, 0 mana remaining, just rips the lab partner for 0 for 1 more generated card that discounted the mana giant even further, got it in play, and the game just snowballed from there. Counterspell or Spellbender were needed as well, as you described, to be able to potentially stick a board. I guess other secrets could have done that, but nowhere near as effectively. Crucially, the board that stuck was an 8-drop giant that got to deal 8 and then be Conjurer's Calling into 2 other huge minions that ended up ending the game. So, yeah, I mean, definitely chalk one up for the Sorcerer's Apprentice Evocation School of Thought in that matchup, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And one for RDU as well. I think, like we've been saying, every time these two players clash, it's an exciting match, no matter what it seems. So I'm just looking forward to whenever the next time they play versus each other is going to happen. So hopefully that's very soon. But for now, we are going to go to a break while we get ready for our match number 4 of the day. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with some more Hearthstone Grandmasters.